right? So today, you can sit in some small village in, Trichy, or it's not a small village, but I'm saying some small part of the country, you can suddenly realize that you want to be a AI developer or a data scientist or whatever it is, and then go take an online course, and still sitting in that city, if you've learned enough of it, you could actually complete the course, get the certification, and then interview with companies and get a job and still sit in that city and work. You could work globally if you're willing to freelance. I think it's going to go even faster. I think more and more learners are going to get access to the best and highest quality education from whichever part of the country or the world.
Today we had Arjun Nair on the pod. Arjun is the co-founder of Great Learning. Great Learning is India's leading provider for online professional and higher education. In 2021, BYJU acquired Great Learning for $600 million. Great Learning was bootstrapped. During our conversation, we covered what shaped Arjun the most while growing up, what made him move back to India and start Great Learning, how has online education evolved over the years, and where does he see it going in the future? What are the major challenges in Indian education, and how would he solve them as education minister? His advice to diasporas considering India as an opportunity and contemplating moving back to India. Who is he outside of work, and much more. Now I bring you Arjun. Arjun, so excited to have you on the podcast.
Great to be here, Shiva. Nice to meet you, and looking forward to interacting with you over the next half an hour or so.
Likewise, I'm excited as well. And so maybe Arjun, a good starting point could be, typically we're really a product of our environment. Maybe, talk us through your early life. How was it like? Do you remember some of the profound moments that shaped you?
Well, so I grew up in Trivandrum in Kerala, and spent the first nearly 20 years of my life here. In a way, that was great because very stable environment, not much change, but not much exposure also. So I had some cousins or my uncles and aunts who would have left Kerala, who would come back, and they were in the States or in Europe. They would come back, and then some was a doctor, an engineer, or so on. So I'd get to interact with them, but I had no exposure in that way as to what's happening around the world. But of course, I did get a chance to have, as I said, very stable. I had no questions around who I was and where I belong and my identity. None of that was a question. But I was yearning for a global experience. I wanted to go beyond what was available in Trivandrum and in Kerala, particularly in those days when, honestly, in India, forget Kerala, even in India, there weren't that many opportunities, early 2000s and so on, to build businesses and so on. So I wouldn't say I had an idea that I wanted to get into business, but the yearning was more from I wanted to see the world. So if you ask the question, as you said, about profound experience, so more than a profound experience, I think it was a very strong yearning to go see the world, to experience a life beyond what was available in Trivandrum, in Kerala, which was very closed and very small. And that's sort of what got me really thinking about how do I expand my horizons. There was this very strong desire to pull myself out of where I was and the experiences that I had, to interact with people from different cultures, to be part of cutting edge technology and innovation, and to, as I said, to see the world. And I was very curious, and I had to figure out how to do it, mostly because, my family didn't come from any business backgrounds, or it was not like I could just take a flight ticket and go. Nobody could pay for that. So I had to figure out a way. And, like you had said that you got a tennis scholarship, I got scholarships based on other aspects. So I went and studied in the US at Duke. I did engineering, and I got a scholarship to do that. And I worked a lot also while on campus. Had to finish that without a debt. And a lot of it was just basically trying to figure out how I could continue to do what I wanted. A lot of it was just about expanding my horizons and seeing what my maximum capability was. So that's what actually got me out of India, and spent a good part of my life just touching excellence. And I kind of thought that in those days, again, as I said, when it was in engineering and in certain areas, that excellence, I couldn't find it in, or maybe it was there in the IITs, but I didn't get into one of those. So then if you didn't get there, it was hard to, hard to experience that unless you figured out a way to get into one of these global universities where you do have state-of-the-art research and facilities and so on. So very fortunate to have had that experience. But while I was working in engineering, and so this is what I would think of my second sort of profound experience or realization rather about what I wanted to do with my life, was while I was in the US and I was working for Siemens, I was doing exactly what I thought I wanted to do when I was in India, which is actually to go see the world and work in cutting edge technology and innovation. And post Duke, I actually got into Siemens, and we were working in AI and all of this back in the day, in as I said, 2005, 2006. However, while I was doing that, I kind of got the sense that research and innovation and technology is great, but I wasn't enjoying my role as an engineer working on research, because the things that I was working on was likely going to take 10, 15, 20 years to go to market. And it's probably good because, if you're working on healthcare and medical devices and patient-centric solutions, then you do want it to go through that kind of a research cycle, because you don't want to put anything which works 95% of the time. You want it to work 99.9999% of the time, right? So that FDA approval process is good. My nature did not allow for that long a time frame to wait to see the things that I was working on come to market. So that got me interested in business and in product development and product management, and the idea of, how do you take products to market faster? How do you get feedback faster? How do you get to interact with consumers more and build solutions that people can use today? So, and there's of course plenty of such products and services. So that got me interested in learning about business, and I went to MIT Sloan to study business. And again, I had this idea of how do I get out of school without having much of a loan and without having much of a debt. So I never wanted to have debt. The whole idea of having to work in a role that you didn't enjoy just because you had to pay off a loan, I always wanted to avoid that. And so I tried to figure out what scholarships existed at Sloan. And interestingly, one of the scholarships that existed was this scholarship called Legatum Scholarship for entrepreneurs from emerging markets, except that you had to be an entrepreneur from an emerging market, which I wasn't then. And so I came to India in 2008 while I was working at Siemens. I took a few weeks off. I traveled across a few cities, and then I tried to see what kind of a business plan can I write. And in 2-3 weeks, I wrote a business plan. It was not a great business plan. It was very, very amateur job, but maybe there was a lot of genuine desire and there was a lot of genuine understanding. So I did get the scholarship, incidentally, and I got an acceptance at Sloan. So I went to business school, and but that scholarship was actually pretty cool, because it turned out that over the course of the next 1 year, I had to build a real business plan. And I was getting mentorship from successful entrepreneurs. And the person who was responsible for the scholarship built a business for bottom of the pyramid in Bangladesh. So that's where it came from. And so I got fantastic mentorship. And then this idea of actually coming back to India and starting a business, made sense. So while I was then at Sloan, then I realized that, I do want to be an entrepreneur, and my greatest chance of success might be in India. I was also the time, when I was finishing up 2010, 2011, the entrepreneurship was picking up in India, where folks were, Flipkart was getting started. I think Ola might have gotten started. There were a few other companies there. So the idea of moving back to India was interesting. Anyway, I got, to some extent, I also felt that I needed to do it because I got a scholarship to do that. And I was genuinely interested. And there were lots of visa-related issues in the US. Then I think it's a little better now, but those days it was not. You can't really start a business unless you already raised funding. So the visa did not allow you to do that. So there were many of those things came together, and that's a story of how I ended up in India, and of course tried many different things before we got to Great Learning. I would think these two sort of, one, wanting to get out of India, and then while there, realizing that I want to come back. And I've been very happy with both choices, because I think if I did not leave, I would not have had the that sort of inspiration to get into business. And if I did not come back, I don't think I would have been successful in the US, and I probably would have been in a job that I didn't enjoy.
Enjoyed, yeah. Yeah, and seems like you've mostly followed your curiosity, and one thing led you to the other. And Arjun, so you figured, you realized, okay, business is what I want to build, and I got the learnings. Now India seems like a good choice. Tech ecosystem is definitely it's on the rise, and so you came back. Initially, how were the first few years, and then maybe we can quickly dive into the founding story of Great Learning.
Yeah, the first few years was really tough. So I came, even before I came back, I tried to build a business in the US, multiple businesses. I worked with different folks, but it didn't, even while I was business school, and none of them really worked out. So it didn't work. And then I came to India. I actually came to India to join the leadership team at a company called ZipDial, which of course now people won't know, but in 2011, 2012, it was a pretty exciting company. It got sold to Twitter after I left, though, but that was actually a pretty interesting experience. So that's sort of what I came in. And then after I left ZipDial, I tried again. It was just basically bottom to try and start something. You're running out of money. Basically, you don't have any money. So I had no money because I was not working. And I would take the metro, in Gurgaon, from Gurgaon to Noida. So I came to Gurgaon because I had a couple of friends there. But I would take the metro, the 1.5 hour metro, because in Noida, there was a manufacturing plant, and I tried to work with somebody there to build another business. So, it was a hard grind, knocking on the doors, and wondering, why the hell did I do this? Because every one of my classmates is doing pretty well, having stable jobs and making hundreds and thousands of dollars a year, which is what, if you finish loan and did an MBA, that's what you get. Here I am, like, figuring out how to survive and freelance. And honestly, I don't know what sort of inspired me to do that. And it was not for a few months. That went on for like 2-3 years. So it was a very long period of time where I worked with different, sometimes friends, sometimes contacts, sometimes on my own. I came back to Trivandrum, tried to work on a hospital idea. Then this manufacturing business, we launched a microphone in the US. Then I worked on a healthcare idea with another friend. So it was just really, surviving. So I would do consulting to make some money on the side to keep my family afloat, because I had a wife and a child. And then when I really ran out of money, I would come back home to my mother's house in Trivandrum and then stay there for a few months, and then again go out and try to figure out how to build the next thing. So finally, after many of those, my co-founder at Great Learning, Hari, and I went to undergrad together. So we were friends for a very long time, and we still are friends. So Hari used to work with Great Lakes with Mohan, and they were at that point in time looking at starting an online venture, which is what it was very by chance. Then Hari asked me, "Hey, what do you think of education? Do you want to get into education and build an online business in education?" And then I was like, "Okay, yeah." I was in that mindset where I was ready to try anything, and it was very incidental. Got started, and I think that founding team got to be very strong. We all had complementary skills, and there was something real there, which very quickly became apparent for me. And then now it's been 10 years. I haven't looked back, and we had a very successful story over the last 10 years, and built a great business. Had tremendous impact, and I think been very fortunate that things came together for us to be able to do that. So we can talk specifically about the things that work, but I think largely getting to that point, I would say, was two things. One, I think just that sort of me casting a wide net and working with many different people. So for people, and I say this to many times now, some young entrepreneur or interested entrepreneur or wannabe entrepreneur comes and asks you, how do you find your co-founders? How do you get started? And I think a good way to think about that is, keep an open mind and work with many different people and see what your skill sets are. And I think that I followed, which was really to work with quite a lot of different people. You may get lucky that the first person that you work with is the person that you get to build a company with, or you may get, it may take longer, but eventually you will find somebody that you want to work with. So that's one. And I think invariably, in the end, who I did work with turned out to be somebody I knew for a very long time. So I'm not saying that is that's how it is, but I do think there is something about working with your friends or working with someone, even with Mohan, the values aligned very strongly and the experiences aligned, which was, what kind of motivates you to get started and what are you trying to, achieve. So I think that kind of, at least in the beginning, that sort of coming together of people with a certain alignment in values, interests, backgrounds, aspirations. There is a magic that happens. So that's how the team came together. And of course, then I would say that's a necessary but not sufficient condition, right? That was absolutely needed. But then, of course, the fact that the business idea that we were on, education, and where the way we started blended, and then eventually online, and the market was just right for it, and all the things that came together, right? So there is definitely luck involved and timing involved to have enabled us to achieve the scale and the outcome that we did. But I think you would need both. You would need to get to a place where there is a certain team that comes together, and you do need to have good ideas and a good opportunity and a good market and a good timing. I don't think it's impossible, but it does require some patience and it does require some fortune.
So it seems like all you wanted to do was start a business, and then you tried many things with a bunch of different people, figured the right kind of folks that you want to work with, and also the idea. And Arjun, let's take a step back to 2013, 14. Seems like you guys were one of the early folks in online learning. Maybe you can paint a picture. How was it then? Where are we today in terms of education? And what do we see next in the future?
Yeah, I think the world has changed dramatically. Now, a lot of things that you take for granted just did not exist in 2013. It's hard to even forget even 2013, even 2017, 18, 4-5 years back. It's actually pretty dramatic what's happened in the last 5 years. When we started, people were not even comfortable paying for things online. So the idea of, and of course, there wasn't enough bandwidth and streaming and things that we're taking for granted today was just not there. So the model that we started was blended. So we started offering courses in different cities, and we would fly our faculty there, and learners would come there, and they would learn from the best. Our idea was always to provide high quality education to people who did not have access to it. So otherwise, you would have to get into an IIT or an IIM, or if you could afford, go abroad. That was the choice that was there in 2013. Or you could do something online, whether it's Coursera or Udacity or Udemy, which was the companies then, international companies. But they had a very different approach, which was all product level, asynchronous content. And folks in India, from a cultural point of view, I think we're not ready for that either, right? So we had to get people to go from a place where they trust online education, they trust paying for things online, they believe that outcomes can happen, career transitions can happen, they can get jobs. There's a real company that's with real people who are doing this sincerely at the other end of it. None of that was really there. Now, of course, people are a lot more willing to take a bet than they didn't. So we started in a very different environment and mindset where we had a physical class. We had a physical office. People can come to our office. They can meet us. Many of them would, will after meeting us, talking to the faculty, give us a check because they wouldn't even be okay with paying for things online, particularly when it's a high ticket item and our price points are quite high. We had to keep it high because we were we had to deliver that much value, and we had to get faculty and lab facilities and so on. So that took a lot of education. And the first model, as I said, was blended. We had centers in Gurgaon, Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Pune, and so on. And later, only after 3-4 years, we started getting the online model. And there was a bunch of innovations that we had to do. One, of course, for us to also learn how to deliver outcomes online. And it is different from how you deliver outcomes in a physical classroom blended mode. So we had to learn how to do that. So there was us learning and, of course, delivering that to students. And that took a while for us to get right. And then then once the outcomes started happening, then I think learners started becoming much more comfortable with the idea of online education. It's cheaper, it's more convenient. You don't have to go to one of these centers. It's more accessible. It's more flexible in the sense that you don't have to be at a certain point in time doing this. You don't have to block a large part of your time. So a lot of benefits. And so of course people took to online education, and there were a lot of outcomes we were able to create that way, not just in these centers but around the country. Then if you look at the evolution, then of course COVID happened 3 years back, and then everybody was forced to go into online education, and everybody experienced it. And then in our segment, at least, which is adults and professional upskilling and higher education, folks found out that to be quite as effective or even more effective and more convenient than physical classroom-based learning. So after COVID, people are not going back to the classroom-based models, right? So there's now, of course, today when you look at it, I think now that it's tipped over already, right? So I think this segment will prefer online education to classroom education for professional upskilling. So that's the big change. Folks are much more comfortable with paying for things online, consuming content online, building relationships online, interviewing for jobs online, getting jobs online, then working remotely. Then, so the entire cycle is there, right? So today, you can sit in some small village in, Trichy, or it's not a small village, but I'm saying some small part of the country, you can suddenly realize that you want to be a AI developer or a data scientist or whatever it is, and then go take an online course. And still sitting in that city, if you've learned enough of it, you could actually complete the course, get the certification, and then interview with companies and get a job, and still sit in that city and work, and then probably make a ton of money as well, because the pays for the salaries for these jobs are quite high. And you could work globally if you're willing to freelance, and you could get now clients in the US and Europe and wherever, right? So it's an amazing world. And I think to your later question as to where is all of this going, I think it's going to go even faster. I think more and more learners are going to get access to the best and highest quality education from whichever part of the country or the world. By the way, we have now a very large presence outside of India, and we've got learners in pretty much every part of the globe, 170 countries, Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Australia, South America, every country that you can imagine, we have folks coming and learning, and we're delivering to all of them sitting in India, and they're learning in those countries and having career transitions and taking part in a global marketplace. And it's, I wouldn't imagine being any less than 10, 100 times more in the years to come. No doubt that this is the way the world is shifting, and I think more and more types of courses will be offered online. More and more learners will be comfortable with learning online, and more learners will have successful career transitions and outcomes online. And honestly, everybody will be better off as a result of that.
No, it's to your point, it's so powerful now, meaning as long as you have internet, laptop, and a desire, you can really build a career from anywhere, wherever you are, and still be at that place and working for anyone outside of own country. And and of course, credit to platforms like yourself, Great Learnings, and others. And Arjun, seems like the last 10 years or more, you've been, sleeping, drinking, or eating education system. So, maybe you can kind of like paint a picture around what are the biggest issues in Indian education system as of now, and given, let's say, you get a chance to become education minister of India, how would you go about solving those issues?
See, that is a really tough question and a tough problem, right? Because when you think of education, it's one of the pillars that can truly transform the nation and that's the reason why I've been in this for so long, because you can actually change people's lives, not for an immediate 1 or 2 years, but you can change their lives for that entire their life lifetime. And you're changing the lives of the people around them, their family, their kids, their parents, their spouses and relatives and so on, and then of the communities that they're part of. So if you can actually create transformative educational experiences for people, I think you are going to transform society. So now to your question as to what are the challenges, see, I think you'll have to break it down into different segments, right? There's no one rush across all the segments, right? So there's one challenge challenge that you have to deal with when you're looking at kids, and kids also at different segments, right? So kids from a certain age group, let's say the first 6-7 years of their life, the next 6-7 years of their life, and the last, not the last, I would say, till they go to college and higher education, the last few years of high school. These would require different ways of thinking about what high quality education is. And then, how do you reimagine what college should be and the challenges with college? And then once you finish college, when you're working, what are the challenges with education? And I think these are all different questions. And so this is one way to split it. The other way to split it is also, unfortunately, education differs very significantly when you're looking at economic backgrounds of the people, right? So people when they are poor, unfortunately, just don't have access to any kind of education. Or the access, particularly when you think of schools, the access to the education that they have is so poor that they don't have, teachers are not coming to class, or the teachers who are coming to class are just teaching them the wrong things. So that is a very different problem altogether. So I think when you start thinking about it deep and then go down in that path, it just becomes like a very, very, very hard problem to solve, right? At that scale. So I definitely I don't think I'm qualified to be or I don't think I want to be the education minister. That's not a job that I'm coveting for. And even if I get there, I don't think I'll do a good job with it, right? But what I would do is to actually pick any piece of it, right? So the folks that I would talk to are aspiring entrepreneurs, or even if I were to talk to myself, I would say you pick any piece of, right? You could pick any one of them, any one of these segments, and then think of a way to solve that problem. I would say just start there, right? In the college, it could be just about employment and employability, because the biggest problem there is majority of the students who are finishing college are just not employable, right? So that's one area. Another way to think about that is, okay, now they don't necessarily have to find jobs in companies. Can you inspire people to be entrepreneurs and look at problems that are there in the society? And you don't have to build the next unicorn or billion-dollar business, and that's a very wrong way of thinking about entrepreneurship. You can build a business that sustains your life and your family's life and contributes to society and community, and that's good enough. And how do you get people to be comfortable with the idea of building a business and going down the path of entrepreneurship? And how do you, maybe post-college is too late, and can you create a change in the mindset in school itself, where folks right now, what they aspire for are a stable government job. And I don't think, and I'm not talking about well-to-do families, I think there, of course, people have gone past that. If that's what you aspire for, which is a stable government job, how many, I don't know if that is enough to actually solve the employment needs that are there in the country, right? So I think it'll be really cool if we can inspire a generation of people to be entrepreneurs, start businesses, and become successful in those businesses. And I would also think that you don't need to have crazy education. Everybody doesn't have to become a data scientist or an AI engineer or a lawyer or a doctor or anything, right? So you could become skilled in a specific area, vocational training, and having access to certain skills, and being able to create little companies and little businesses with those skills that serve a community, serve a society, and that's good enough. So part of it is actually getting the hard skill and having access to that. And part of it is also changing the mindset where you're comfortable with taking that hard skill and then being able to build a business to sustain and contribute to society. So I would say these are two different things. And I have ideas to work on those areas. I would like to work on that. But I would think there are plenty of such opportunities to work on it, where you don't have to think of this from a top-down, a government-led, government minister, doing things on a policy level. I'm honestly not qualified to think like that, but I can think of it from a decentralized, entrepreneurial, community-based, societal, activation and change-based way of solving some of these problems. And I think that might be effective as well and have the significant impact.
Yeah. Changing the mindset of a generation where we can, inspire them to become entrepreneurs. That becomes a big shift. And Arjun, as we were discussing about it earlier, where, I think you moved back 10, 11 years or maybe more back. And at the time you saw India as an opportunity, and this is where you wanted to spend the next decade or more. That the remaining life. And if you were to advise, and I don't know if you probably have friends who are abroad thinking about moving back to India, how would you advise them in terms of thinking about moving back and India as an opportunity in 2023 and moving?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say is that you should be really clear as to, particularly if you're thinking of it coming back from abroad, right? As opposed to, let's say, somebody in India. This is a shift away from what I said earlier. If you are in India and you're talking to a certain segment who's trying to build a business, but suppose you're already abroad, you went to a good school there, or, you're seeing opportunities to work in companies and you've seen a certain lifestyle that's possible, then I think the first thing that you have to be clear is in your mind as to, why do you want to come back, right, in the first place? Because I think it's going to be a lot, that's day one. It's going to be a lot harder in India in the first few years of trying to build a business than it is to work on a paycheck and have a pretty decent quality of life in the US or in UK or Germany or Canada or wherever you are, right? So I think you have to be pretty driven and very clear in your mind that you are not going to India to have an equivalent quality of life or to make the same amount of money, because all of that is hard, right? So I think that clarity of mind is, I think, number one as to why do you want to come back to India. If you can actually have a good job in the US, it pays your rent and it pays to have a good life. It's not a bad choice at all. But if you are looking to live an inspired life, to create impact, to transform your life and the lives of people around you, and see that change in front of you and feel good that you're part of changing that and part of actually contributing to society improving and changing in a very direct way. You could still do that in an indirect way by working at a company in a direct way. Then I think being in India is actually pretty cool, right? Yeah. So as I said, so I think one, that clarity of mind that you're coming here for a specific goal and you're willing to go the distance to achieve that goal, right? So, and that experience is important to you and that's sort of your calling, and you're going to give up a lot of things to do that, and you're going to sacrifice, but in the end it's going to be enormously rewarding as well, right? Part of it is financially, but even beyond financially, just the fulfillment and the satisfaction of knowing that you've enabled people to have a better life is actually quite phenomenal. So I think those are that's what I would say when somebody is thinking of coming back to India. Have clarity as to why you're coming back, and remember that, because it will take a while for your goals and your dreams to come to pass. And when the times get hard, I've seen people give up, and just because they've experienced an easier life in the US or wherever, I've seen people say that, hey, this is too hard, why am I doing this, and go back. So that clarity of purpose and that inspiration to really do something transformative, that is needed, because it'll take you a few years. It could be it'll be a while before you actually build something that has impact. And so for you to be able to go that distance, you have to sort of live an inspired life. But that said, there are also so many opportunities here, as I spoke about earlier, right? So there are so many problems to solve. It is a growing market in terms of just people's aspirations, as well as a need to lift people up into with better everything, better food, better education, better sports facilities, better roads, better transport. Everything, there's a better there, right? So so I would say the opportunity is so much more, and that's what I was saying earlier. It's easier in India to find things to solve, and easier if you are willing to go 4, 5, 10 years, easier to find success, because naturally it's sort of the economy is pushing people in that direction, right? We are on the right side of the curve, right? So it's much harder to build a business in a market that is saturated and declining than a market that is expanding and very aspirational, is super young, has a lot of headroom for growth. So it can get actually pretty exciting if you have enough of an inspiration and energy to spend the next decade out here.
No, absolutely with you on that point. There are just so many problems one can tackle and solve, and the opportunity is just massive, given where the country as a whole is moving towards. And Arjun, with this, my co-pilot wants to get in. He wants to kickstart the final part of the podcast, and he's asking, what is Arjun's typical day look like, starting from waking up to going to bed?
Yeah, it varies quite a bit, to be honest. honest, there are a few things that I want to get done in a day, and it depends on where I am. As I was telling you earlier, I end up traveling quite a bit in the last, I've been traveling quite a bit in the last few months, and sometimes I'm in India, sometimes I'm in Europe, sometimes US. In the last 1 year, I've been in so many different countries, partly for travel, and partly for work. So sometimes I have meetings at 3 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes my last meeting is at 12:30 or 1 or 2 in the morning, right? So because of the time zone, and so there's a lot of variability in this last 1 year. It's normally not like that, but in the last 1.5 years, there's a lot of variability with when I sleep and when I wake up and what I do. But to your question, what all do I do in a day? I think for me, it's very important that I do my yoga. So I spend even today like a couple of hours. So that's non-negotiable. Wherever I am, whatever time zone I am, I always do it. I may wake up sometimes I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, as I said, and sometimes I wake up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning, depending on when I slept or where I travel from, and if I'm jet lagged or not. But I'll do my 2 hours of yoga. Then I end up doing work, which again varies quite a bit. Sometimes there's a lot, and sometimes there's not much, because I'm thankful that I have a really good team, and so most of the stuff that the team does, and of course there are times when I get pulled into problems. So that's one part of it. I don't Monday to Friday, do Monday to Sunday. There is no separation. I mean, for me, the weekends are quite artificial. I don't feel any need to stop or to start. And then I spend time with my family. So I've got 2 kids, married, so end up spending time with them. Enjoy, whether it's just playing or free time or watching something together. And, we travel quite a bit. So it might be, as I was saying earlier, last 3 months, we went to like 8-9 different countries. So we stayed in different countries for a week, 10 days. And then, we experienced the different cultures, the food, the people, and whether it's in Norway or in the fjords in Norway or wherever it is, like we actually enjoy that a lot. So a lot of outdoor stuff. I think that's mostly it.
Got it. And Arjun, what kind of yoga do you practice?
I do Ashtanga yoga. So I was very fortunate to actually learn this when I was in Goa. So I got this was like a little more than 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago when we first moved there. I by chance found a fantastic teacher who taught me this style of yoga called Ashtanga yoga. It's actually a lot more physically intensive. I don't know. Do you know Ashtanga yoga?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a lot more physically intense than other forms of yoga. So otherwise, I was never into it. I was not fascinated. In fact, I found most styles of yoga boring. And but once I started this, and I got completely hooked onto it. And what's also great is that I learned it in Goa. Then I went to the States, and we were in the Bay Area for a year. And while we were there in California, then I found a great teacher there who taught the same style, and then who helped me go further in my practice. And then we were in Lisbon, for the last few months, and there I found a teacher who's again teaching the same style and helping me move forward. And then in between, wherever I go to drop in classes. So in Bangalore, I find teachers, and so it's quite fascinating that it's like there is a structure, there is a style. You can go anywhere, and then the teachers will teach you and then help you progress and move forward. And it's also it just made me feel great, high energy, calm when there is like all kinds of crazy stuff. I really think that our ancestors were onto something quite fascinating. With yoga, and particularly the certain disciplines where there's a lot of thought that went into the practice. You feel great, you feel happy, you have clarity, you can do a lot more. And it's like meditation, because you're spending 2 hours on a yoga mat, and then helps you build resilience to go through. So I love my practice.
You're obsessed with
I am obsessed, and
I can sense that. One of my friends, and you're right, that it's definitely it's a bit physically demanding, given the practice that you've been doing. One of my friends, she went to Mysore to take training, and she unfortunately she sprained her ankle very early in the course. But yeah, she loved it, and she wants to do it again. Arjun, if let's say money and attention are not needed anymore, either you just don't need it, you have enough, that it's out of the picture. And for the time being, let's say you're not working on great learning, what would you work on?
Yeah, so I think I would still work on things that has an impact, right? So whether that results in money or attention, if it actually changes somebody's life for the better, I would be excited by that. And it could start as small as my kids. It'll be good if I can get them to laugh and get them to learn and get them to put them on the right track. So I would start there, and I would try to spend in fact that's what I do. How can I get them to learn something new? How can I get them to laugh? Because for me it's very important that you end up laughing and enjoy life, right? So ultimately you're here and you should be enjoying life, in whatever it is that you're doing. So I want them to enjoy life. Kids are, by the way, very good at enjoying life, and I would want to continue to get them to enjoy life. Then I would say, well, is what I'm doing right now with my kids, can that benefit other kids, and can that benefit parents? And I would like to expand the scope of my impact, right? So I don't want it to be just limited to my kids and my family, because I find that kind of constricting. I would like to give a lot more of what I have to a much wider audience, and much wider, not from just the point of attention, but if I am inspiring somebody, or if I'm getting someone to laugh, or if I'm getting someone to if I'm getting someone to have a better life, and through whatever way, then I would like to have that impact to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So so that my work can benefit as many people as possible, provided what I'm doing is actually sensible and is good. So I will experiment it on my family, and if there is a positive impact, then I would try to scale that to folks beyond my family.
Impacting the lives of others matters the most to you. And Arjun, we know you as a tech entrepreneur. What do your friends know you? Who are you outside of work?
I'm actually, very, very, very quiet. I'm not I don't go out much. I have the same set of friends I've had from college, and I've just added a few people here and there over a period of time. So I think they would know me as somebody who's would be dependable. That there's comfort, and we spend time together, and it's fun, and it's laughter, and I think they would still know me as someone who who believes in solving I wouldn't say solving, in going after challenges and trying to do challenging things, because that's what keeps me going. So I think they would say that, if you were to ask my friends as to how does this guy spend his time, I think they would say that, yeah, you probably go try to do the next challenging thing, whether he's going to succeed or not.
Got it. Arjun, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I had so much fun having a conversation with you, and thank you for really walking us through your journey, starting from your early life, the time you spent in the US and company building, and how you think about impacting the lives of others, and all the aspects of you around who are you outside of work. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thanks, Shiva. I enjoyed it a lot. Fantastic questions. Made me think, and I'm better off because of that. So thanks for doing the podcast, and hopefully some of what we talked will be inspirational to your audience.